some of my favorite pieces that I've made have come from points of high motion.
Alexander Massek, a photographer, artist, and straight up G, and one of my best friends.
It's a question that everyone wants the answer to, but
Yeah.
almost no one has the answer. Doing creative projects and making a living off of only creative projects is extremely tasking.
I texted him, I was like, yeah, man, I'm all good. In my head, I'm thinking, shit.
I must continue to do things because it's part of my like cultural
Yeah.
indoctrination or something. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Started that, man.
Nice, that took quite like a spiritual, I feel like it always does with you. But that's good. That's good. All right. Alexander Massek, back in the building once again. A lot of repeat podcast guests.
Yes.
Very impromptu podcast as well.
Love to see it.
Yeah, you got the invite about 2 hours ago.
And I'm here.
Coming. Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you.
Alexander Massek, the photographer, the Ampersand Media, the man of the hour, taking fashion by the balls. Yeah, man. Do you know the one thing I really appreciate in the last probably couple of years that you've done, is your consistency on like Instagram and Twitter of just like posting like every day. But I don't know every day, but basically every day. Images, and that's like slowly really like it's really taken off. Like basically every image you post on Twitter like gets like 100 retweets or whatever, like 100 likes, or it's really good numbers, and it's getting a lot of traction. What sort of prompted you to when did you begin posting like consistently on Twitter?
So maybe like 2-3 years ago, something like that. I'd been pretty consistent with posting on Instagram, but I was starting to struggle a bit with the consistency of posting and the mental health I had in relation to Instagram. Not necessarily like really bad association with it, but it was just like kind of bugging me a little bit. I felt like I was stagnating on Instagram in terms of what I was getting out of the platform. The growth wasn't there anymore, and also just the way I was seeing my work was kind of getting warped a little bit by Instagram. Specifically, like as a photographer, you start to use Instagram as a portfolio as well. Not necessarily completely, but a lot of clients look at your work on Instagram, especially in fashion, and they kind of make decisions on jobs often by looking at Instagram. And that, I think, made me post a little bit less frequently, and also kind of get a little bit more specific about like my feed and how it was curated. And then, I don't know. I just wanted somewhere where I could kind of get back to just sharing stuff freely and not really thinking about all that. So Twitter became that place. I started seeing that it was possible to post on Twitter, and that there was a photography community. And so I slowly like built it up over a bit of time, and it was just like I could post, whatever, and not have to worry about how it was curated versus like the previous post. I felt like there was a little bit more of a engagement of discussion with the people there. Kind of reminded me of what Instagram used to be like. I'd sound like that old timer back in the day, but I don't know. It just felt healthier to me to post on there, and I started to realize actually that the engagement on Twitter was actually helping my Instagram. So people would find my Instagram through Twitter, and even though I didn't have that many followers, and I still don't have like a crazy amount of followers on Twitter, it seems like a lot of people actually use Twitter's photography connectivity to find people on Instagram and then just follow them on Instagram instead of Twitter. So that was really nice because it felt like I didn't have to worry so much about posting on Instagram, and I was still kind of moving in the right direction in terms of getting my work out there. That's kind of like an overall view. I think like, also, it's just higher resolution. It's just a bit more. It
just looks nice.
It just looks nice.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And I think Twitter is a lot more. It's a lot more community focused. Yeah. Because like on Instagram, obviously you've got your followers and stuff, but it's quite hard to reach people outside of your followers. Yeah. Where on Twitter it's kind of completely the opposite. Kind of obviously you have the people that follow you, but it's almost equally as big
Yeah.
in terms of like interactions you get from people that don't follow you as well, because obviously it retweets and stuff. So it kind of works in a completely different way that I think is actually super beneficial for photography.
For sure.
It has there's a lot of and also stuff kind of there's a lot more potential I think for photography to go viral on Twitter. Like for example, your image with like all the flowers and the girl, yeah, like that went big on Instagram as well.
That one did make waves.
It made waves, yeah. And you did your, I like the recent blue one as well.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, that was a nice one. Really nice. So yeah, I think Twitter is a really good platform for photographers actually, because it's also the connection you make with people. Like Twitter DMs is I feel like quite different from Instagram DMs.
Definitely.
The Instagram DMs is like a lot of it, like people just replying to your story, like laughing emojis and what.
Yeah.
But like Twitter is actually where a lot of connections get made. Do you know what I mean? A lot of genuine, important connections where, it's like a healthy version of networking.
Yes.
A healthy version of networking.
Yeah, it feels a bit more.
Yeah, 100%.
Some people have a negative like view of Twitter, especially recently with the whole Elon stuff. But I mean, I don't know. I think like also the platform kind of looks the way you want it to look. So like what you engage on and stuff, what you look at, and like who you're following kind of makes the platform. So
yeah, 100%. Like, at what stage do you think the Instagram became like a drag rather than something you actually enjoyed? And are you out of that now?
Yeah. I guess like just around COVID time, really, I think it really started to become more of a drag. I think also that was when I was kind of becoming a bit more like sucked into the reality of the fashion industry.
Yeah.
Like the personalities, the egos, let's say that.
Yeah.
So it took me a little bit of time to actually kind of learn how to deal with all that stuff and to kind of find my center. So I would say during that time, and now I'm coming back to it, and I don't have as negative of a kind of feeling towards Instagram. I think there's still less posting happening on Instagram, and that's not as much because I feel like it's negative on my mental health, but more so I find that I feel like I just don't feel the need to post as much.
Yeah, and it is more like curative because obviously you've got your timeline and it's got.
I think it still is curative. Like I'm still trying to make it look really good because I think like it's a mixture of like brand work and personal work.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think now I'm definitely a little bit more like slow on the posting, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm more okay with it. I don't put the pressure on myself as much. I still have those moments for sure. Like it gets to your head. And something just like corkscrews those negative thoughts or something, and then you have to take a step back for a day and just be like, it's really not that deep. But that's something I've been working on for quite a few years now, just like getting that headspace to not exist permanently. It'll never go away. But
also, like in the last sort of like year or so, you've taken a real, not even year, maybe more, or you can tell me, but you've taken a real sort of deep dive into like film photography. You've got a membership at a film house where you do a lot of handprints from medium format and 35mm format, which I think might be quite interesting for some young photographers to hear, like your process. Like how did you reach the point where you really want to dive deep into film photography?
So I've actually been doing it a while. I started maybe like 4 years ago with the film stuff, but I didn't hand print it and stuff. So I was shooting and then scanning it or getting it scanned at first. Then I during COVID, to save money, I started to scan myself, and then I started to develop and scan, which became the cheapest of the bunch. And then eventually, one of my friends who I actually suggested Rapid Eye to, he then was like, why don't you come to Rapid Eye to hand print? Because I was doing a little hand printing at the place that I was at.
Can you just explain what hand printing is?
Hand printing is like, it's a lot of things I could say right now. It's like
in its most simple form.
Yeah, in its most simple form. Analog photography, when it was created, was meant to be shot on analog rolls and then to be printed onto paper, photographic paper, through an enlarger. that's the way that you get the full depth of color and the detail. When you scan, it digitizes that process, but it doesn't have the same kind of colors and the richness and the kind of, I mean, there's some inconsistencies with printing that actually make it quite beautiful.
And how does that process happen? Like, what's the process of getting a, like a 35 millimeter film strip to a image on a paper?
Yeah. So, I mean, the full process I do is I shoot on the film, then it's developed. Like I said, I used to develop it. I don't develop it anymore. It's just too much work now, but it's developed. Then it's put into a machine called an enlarger, which is like basically like another version of a camera, but inverted. So it's like onto the table.
Yeah. So like it shoots down. Yeah.
So it's basically you put the negative through that machine, just place it in, and then light is flashed through that from top down onto a piece of photographic paper that's extremely light sensitive. So you do all this thing in the pitch black, that burns into the paper. The paper then has the image on it, but you put it into a black bag and then you put it through a process of chemical binding. And then that basically solidifies the image even through light exposure. So it then eventually comes out as like a finished image.
So there's no ink involved. It's just
it's just light burned onto chemicals. Essentially, it's the same kind of I don't know exactly the like full logistics on it, but I can imagine it's probably very similar to the actual strip of film in the sense that it's just burned through chemical fixation, and then you have it through the different chemicals. So you have the developer, you have the Blixen, the stop.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to make that clear because it's just really cool. Like there's no ink. It's just like a paper that's photosensitive or light sensitive, and it's you can burn images that look really good on. They do look really good. And sorry to continue from that on. How have you found that process? How has that improved your photography?
I think it's improved it a lot in the sense that it's a way that I kind of created I don't know, at first, there's a lot of things I could say to that, but I think the first thing, like, technically is, like, it opened up my eyes to a whole new process. I was getting kind of to a point with the scanning and stuff where I felt like I couldn't really develop it any further in terms of, like, the photos I looked at where I was like, I really love those images. They were all hand printed. So, like, I had gotten to a point where I was, like, trying to reach that same kind of look or aesthetic, but I couldn't actually because I wasn't printing. So that was one thing, is like it actually pushed me into that direction where all the images that I take now, I feel like they're actually what I'm really trying to get, which is a nice thing to say because like it's been a long journey to get to that point, to be able to actually say that feels really good. Yeah. So that's one thing. I think also it opened my eyes to patience and kind of like figuring out a little bit more selectively what you're shooting, like when to make those key decisions. Because obviously you're shooting on analog and then you're printing, you have a certain amount of time to print per day. You can only do so many prints, you can only shoot so many photos. It costs a lot of money. It makes you a bit more like, it slows you down, makes you think about what you're doing. The financial commitment in itself is obviously a big aspect of that. Like a lot of people would say it's not worth it, or it's tricky to do all that stuff. Like there's like obviously a roadblock in that, and I get that. But I think also for me, what I noticed is when I spend the money on that, it actually forces me to really focus and just to do it.
It's just accountability.
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
accountability. It's forced accountability, but in like a good way, because I'm like, I need to make use of this time, so I'm being productive. The other thing is it helps me because it reduced the amount of time I'm sitting at a computer with, as you know, like, and we spoke with this last time I was on the podcast, I have that back situation, which has gotten a lot better now, and like I'm managing it quite well, but like, one of those reasons is I spend less time actually sitting when I'm making my images. If this process is standing, I'm moving around, I'm loose. Then when I have the prints, they're scanned, and by the time it hits the computer, it's almost a finished image. Yeah, which is really nice. I don't have to spend a lot of time sitting and like tweaking it. I still do a decent amount of like dust removal and retouch, but yeah, those I think are the big things. You know?
Yeah. I think it's when I think of art and creating. As much as, you know, I enjoy gadgets and computers and digital and stuff, it's like, it's so rewarding making something physical and with your hands.
Yeah, it gives you a confidence.
Yeah, confidence. It just like, I think there's something so basic as a human.
Yes.
That because we've for the longest time, we've carved pieces of wood, we've carved pieces of stone, we've painted on walls, we've made planted trees, planted stuff that grows out, stuff that's physical. It's not just on a screen. I think so much of creating nowadays is digital, which is just the way it is. It's I'm not against or for it. It's just the way it is. But I think it's really quite magical when you do make stuff with your hands. Something so stupid, like the other day, when I got my knife and I was just I was just carving a piece of wood, and I wasn't really even making anything, but just it just felt so good to do it. Yeah, even though
you cut yourself.
Yeah, until I cut myself, I had to get a tetanus shot. Yeah, I had to get a tetanus shot because the wood was dirty, and I couldn't remember I've had the tetanus shot. So yeah, funny story. But anyway, it was worth it. I carved a piece of wood that kind of now looks like a knife.
Do you have that piece of?
Yeah, it's literally right there.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's right there. This is the.
Okay.
This is the.
This is the culprit.
Yeah.
Nice.
And this is the. This is the knife.
That's just.
That
is a beast of.
That is a beast of it. I know, mate. I know, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, love that. I'm just gonna place that right there.
Yeah, you do that.
It's good vibes.
And yeah, it's so dumb. Look at it. It's so not nothing.
Yeah.
But I was just the process of it is so satisfying. Just seeing something happen in your hands in front of you.
It puts you into flow state as well.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I think is super beneficial for artists to do something that is physical.
Yeah.
I've, you also do a lot of painting, which, how do you, what do you think is the main difference between your photography, let's just call it art, your photography art and your painting art?
So I would say my photography has a mixture of commercial aspect at this point in my career. I still love it very much, but I think it definitely has a different feeling to it simply from that. I think that's what impacts it the most. Obviously, the processes are very different, but I think for the painting, for me, it's purely something I do for myself. So when I paint, I'm doing it from a place of I have something deeper to say, I suppose, or it's just something I want to kind of be by myself and just relax, unwind a bit. It's quite therapeutic to me to sit and paint. We were just talking about, whether it's carving a knife or, doing hand printing or painting. It's that process puts you out of your head and locks you in, and time can go by really quickly if you're really enjoying it and you just get into the right headspace. And I think it's really a wonderful thing. And before I even did the hand printing, I was painting, and I think that was the first time I saw my work physically present. I didn't even have that many prints of my photos. So when I started painting bigger paintings and seeing them in person, just being able to hang them up and stuff, that was something that really motivated me to continue down that, because it was just a physical reminder as opposed to just having digital images that just disappear into cyberspace. Yeah.
And then one day we get some solar flares. They're coming from the sun and destroy all hard drives on Earth, and then everything disappears.
It'll destroy. Yeah, I mean, also, or everything could just get destroyed. It's also possible.
That's also possible.
It's very possible.
That is also possible. Yeah. How do you stay consistent with everything you do with your? Because you're probably one of the most consistent people I know in terms of posting, painting, and just the overall consistency of creating.
I mean, I guess it's all a perception thing. Thanks for saying that. That's really nice to hear. I think I sometimes don't see it that I'm as consistent maybe as some other people would say I am. I think we all put ourselves we're hard on ourselves, right? I think there's a couple of reasons maybe that that could be the case. Firstly, I'm German, so there's like never ending for like a mental aspect of I must continue to do things because it's part of my like cultural indoctrination or something. I think like maybe that, in all honesty, that might have something to do with it. I do know like my upbringing, I was always encouraged to be very productive and like work hard and stuff. But I think also I do really love being creative. Like it's a part of me that has changed my life in so many positive ways and has helped me through some really dark times. So that's also probably why I feel like every time I need to sort something out like mentally, or if I need to like get into a better headspace, then the ability to create stuff is a part of that, and it gives me the ability to express myself and like what I'm feeling in that moment, and then just put it out there for someone to perceive it, and then it's not lingering in my thoughts as much. Similar, I guess, like some people journal, right? You know, for me, I'm not as much of a writer as I am a visual artist, and I think that was something I started figuring out a bit later, like towards my 20s and stuff like that. Really started to become aware of it, but I think like for me that process has really just brought me a lot of benefits to my mental health, and then also given me opportunities. Like I've met really cool people. I wouldn't have met you if it wasn't for that. So,
Very true.
I wouldn't be sitting here.
I
wouldn't have created Ampersand. Like there's a lot of reasons that, like reinforcement, I suppose, where it's like, well, if you keep making cool stuff, more cool stuff will happen to you. That's, I guess, universal law, right? Put stuff into the universe, it'll bounce it back to you.
Yeah. And also, I think one thing you said there was, you make, whenever you're going through a tough time, you make stuff and you just put it out there for people to interpret. But I want to add to that is like sometimes I feel like part of the process of making something, whenever you're trying to figure stuff out or whenever you're on a hard going through just like something, is I think part of creating is actually making sense of what's happening as well for yourself, because like part of creating can be making sense of your thoughts. Do you know what I mean? Do you feel that way sometimes when you're creating and when you're I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
no, definitely.
like whenever you're trying to deal with something and you decide, well, I'm gonna paint. Like during that paint process, do you find yourself figuring out your problem and just by putting it out physically somewhere?
I think emotions are definitely perceived and like processed through that form of outlet. Like I mean it's different for everyone, but everyone has their form of that. So some people, like I said, might journal, or some people might play sports or like physical activities, whatever it might be. But one of the ones for me is this, and I would say like some of my favorite pieces that I've made have come from points of high emotion. So instead of like, I guess, sitting with it too much and letting it fester inside me, I tend to then say, I'm just going to make some art out of this, right? I know there's this perception of the tortured artist and stuff, which I wouldn't recommend to people. Like it's definitely not healthy for your brain. But that's not really what I'm saying in that sense. It's like I'd rather put the emotions out into something and then let it be that.
And then you just get on with your life.
Yeah, exactly. I don't sit there and I fester and be like, okay, I'm just going to sit with this pain as long as I can and just make a bunch of stuff out of it. Sometimes it takes more than one piece for that to come out, but at least I'm like kind of releasing a lot of that. So I don't know. I mean,
I think it's really important for people to find that outlet for themselves. Like you said, whether it be writing, physical activity, painting, whatever that might be. I think it's really important. Because a lot of people just kind of don't know how to deal with their like you said, moments of high emotion. Whenever like a big event happens in their life, if you don't have a way to deal with that personally and just trying to make sense of it, it will fester. Like you said, it will fester for a long time. It will impact you long time.
Yeah.
So I think it is really important to find some version of that.
I think it's one of the best things that ever happened to me was actually to be able to figure that kind of thing out. Whether that's, for me, it's like I do the meditation as well, or if it's the art, it's like the ability to process emotions and then to actually move on past them. Because you just become a much better person if you don't have all that stuff sitting inside of you and causing all sorts of negative emotions, right? I think like that's a learning process, but I think like a lot of people, I think society in general, society in general would benefit so much, so much from if everyone had some sort of an outlet, and everyone does have that outlet, but I think just like being vulnerable enough to say, okay, I need an outlet. Let's do this thing. Let's figure out what it is. And then sticking to it is the hard part as well. I think like you do have to have some sort of deeper motivation to continue to do those things. But I think a lot of people would benefit from that.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely physical activity. Like one of the main deals I deal with, like my emotions. I remember, do you remember there was one point where I was like obsessed with crypto, like 3 years ago or something. And then there was like literally one day where I lost like $6,000 or something, like in the space of like an evening.
I remember,
like, and that was like 80% of my like whole like of everything I had. And I remember sitting there and I was like, what the fuck? Like that was so stupid. And I sort of like stayed up all night, and then the morning came and I just went and ran for like 20 kilometers. Like did a 20K run. I listened to like some classical music, and came back and I was like, cool, dealt with it. Like literally straight away. And I was like, all right, cool. Time to move on. Like it was like when it happened, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like actually gonna break my life. Going for this run, feeling actually a bit crazy. Like throughout the run, I was like, the more I ran, the more I was like, I feel okay about this. Like, am I crazy? I just lost like so much money that took me so long to make. But I'm feeling okay about it. I was slowly starting to make sense of it. I was like, okay, maybe it's better to make that mistake now when you're like early, when you don't actually have that much money. Or maybe it's like, there's stuff started clicking in my brain. And I mean, I don't know if that's
No, I agree. I mean, people always say, like, if you listen to like, let's say spiritual gurus or people that are like considered wise in society, a lot of them say it's like how you react on the emotion is actually what that emotion or those feelings have power on. Like the feelings you feel from the situation, they give the power to the situation itself. So they just say like, just don't feel it, right? Which is easier said than done. Obviously, like people are just like, what the hell does that mean? Like I can't just turn off my feelings. It's not necessarily about turning them off, but also just like, once again, that outlet gives you the ability to kind of let those feelings kind of just move through you, as opposed to just creating like friction.
Yeah, I heard something recently that I thought was quite profound. It's like, I think whenever you're dealing with a difficult situation, quite often you're not dealing with the difficult situation, but you're dealing with your emotions towards the difficult situation.
Exactly.
So it is so much about the emotions, and it's I hope I phrased that properly. But
you did.
It's not about the situation; it's about your emotions towards the situations.
The gravity
that's actually
you place on those. Emotions.
And the gravity, but just how you deal with those. That's what you're actually dealing with, not the situation, but the emotions towards the situation.
Whew. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Started that, man.
Nice. That took quite like a spiritual.
Yes, it did.
But I feel like it always does with you. But that's good. That's good. That's a good sign. How obviously like now me and you are essentially business partners.
Yes,
business partners. Trying to make sense of like a good combination of making art and making stuff that's creative, but then also making money. And I feel like a lot of people in this industry, in the creative industry, basically battle the same problems. Our problems that I don't think are particularly unique. Where you want to make stuff that you're proud of, but then at the same time you want to make money. And in the best version of that is you make money while you make stuff you enjoy doing.
Yes, ideally.
What do you think is a path to that?
It's like it's a question that everyone wants the answer to, but like almost no one has the answer. I think everyone has like an idea of it. I can give my my 2 cents, I guess.
Yeah.
So as you said, we've been working together for a while now, like since I first came to London.
Yeah.
And I think in my case, or in our case, what worked was having kind of two sides to the coin. So Ampersand, what we do, being the more like commercial stuff that isn't maybe as creatively stimulating towards our own like creative identities, but pays the bills. And then you have your own creative art stuff. I mean, you for example, doing all of this stuff, or like the music videos, or the YouTube channel, just in general, like those kind of things. That's kind of more the stuff you want to be doing. In my case, more the analog photography, the fashion stuff, the documentary or still life, whatever it might be. I battled with like, how do I, blend those two for a long time. And this is a conversation I had with so many people at this point. And like, I think a lot of people kind of come to the same conclusion in the sense that it's not necessarily that you have to blend them. You can have two sides of your brain. I like to think of it as like two sides of my brain. You have the commercial side, you have the creative side. And so like on the commercial side, it'll be something a bit more straightforward, maybe the digital photography of like product photos, or, headshots or whatever. Like it could be anything in that sense, like that people might do. And when you're doing that, it's not as creatively stimulating, but it's also not as creatively draining, which is quite helpful, at least for me, because doing creative projects and making a living off of only creative projects 24/7 is extremely tasking. There are people who do it, but it is really difficult.
Yeah.
I think like me personally, the older I've gotten, the more I've started to realize it's probably not such a bad thing to have that stuff, because it gives you a break from your creative mind, but you're still earning a solid income, and you don't have to overexert yourself creatively, so that when you have the funds to create, sometimes on your own budget, but you have no restrictions, you can create better work.
Yeah.
It's a free ability to create without those restrictions in place that you might have in a client job. I do loads of creative client work at this point, but I don't know if I would ever want to completely cut off the stuff that people might perceive as bland. And I think that's maybe one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give to people, is if you can start thinking of that from a younger age, you'll end up having more money to finance your creative project. Like put the ego to the side a little bit, which is easier said than done, but like be able to say, okay, this is going to give me the funds I can I can have to create something in, let's see, a couple weeks time, as opposed to being a starving artist.
100%. Yeah. And it's there's a million ways to go about this creative industry. Like it doesn't have to be, I'm a car photographer and all I want to do is like car pictures, and like but like if that's all you want to do but you can't get the work, then why not just do whatever photography work you can while still practicing your photography, and you 100%. Get better at it, but you don't it's not your passion, but then at the same time, over time you just get better at it, because it's better that way than just like try and do everything with your creative stuff,
for sure.
and then end up just like working in a coffee shop, because then that's not necessarily a great example, but I think it's just really beneficial if you're a videographer to like take stuff that you don't necessarily enjoy, because then
it helps you develop.
Yeah, you develop your skills while you're still working in the industry, and that will long term be super beneficial to just like understanding how everything works. That's kind of basically what both me and you are doing. Like the creative stuff it's not the creative stuff, whatever that means, but like there's a lot of stuff that we do that doesn't make us money. Do you know what I mean? You do a lot of like test shoots and stuff that you just enjoy doing, just because that's what you want to do. You know? And same with this, like I'm doing this like I want to. Yeah, just because I want to. Like it just doesn't bring me money, but eventually it might. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing with you. Like all those test shoots you're doing. It's that
Makes
you
you a
enjoy
better
them.
photographer.
Yeah, it does make you a better photographer, exactly. So it's not, it's never, there's no rules.
No, there's
There's no rules.
there's no rules to life. I mean, there's like some things obviously you have to kind of abide by in basic structure of like a creative career. But I think like so many people I know who are successful have all had different paths, and I think the one tying factor might be that they really just want to do it. Like they just really, really want to do it.
Yeah.
They have that. They got that dog.
Yeah. Consistency, though.
Yeah.
I think that's also the thing that people just underestimate.
Yeah.
Like it just the people that are best at it tend to be the one that have just been doing it the longest.
Yeah, I mean that's also just practicing.
Yeah,
like
literally
doing
just
the
like-
same thing over and over again might seem a bit monotonous and like unnecessary, but I think if you do the same thing over and over again more than other people,
Yeah.
then you become better at it than other people, and then you have the skill set that other people don't have. That's the base.
And then
kind
you
of
end up having the access of people,
Yeah.
the networking and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's just I'm not that I'm just figuring this out now, but I'm figuring out the importance of it now. Do you know what I mean? Because when you're young, you're just like, yeah, I can make better work than that guy. I can make better work than this guy. But then you realize it's a lot more than that.
There's a lot of factors. That
There's a
go
lot
into
of
it for
factors.
sure.
Yeah, man. The creative industry is a crazy one.
It's very wild.
It's a crazy one, but
It's very crazy.
wouldn't have any other way. We're here.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
here.
yeah.
We're here.
In for the ride.
Yeah. Shit. Do you remember the first time you got paid for a photography job?
Oh, that's a good question. Would have been sometime at uni, probably. If I remember correctly, this might not be the first time, but it's the first one that comes to my head. I took some headshots for like a student society, and I think I made like £150 or something for like 8 or 9 headshots.
Yeah.
Like it was very like I didn't know what I was doing. In all fairness, like
Yeah.
I wasn't even used to taking headshots, so
Yeah.
for me it was like, sure.
Yeah. At that point, when you took those headshots, did you have any interest in fashion?
I didn't even really realize what it was. This is the thing. It's like I don't think like if I had back then where I was where my head was at with even photography to be where I am now doing what I do, I just didn't think it would take that road like at all. I never had an interest in fashion because I didn't really like look at the industry that much. Or
Yeah.
I wasn't particularly fashionable, or
Yeah.
it just didn't really strike my interest as well.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's just
it's
like
insane.
stuff, just like one thing just leads to another, and then before you know it, you're just like within the fashion world, like
Yeah.
shooting stuff,
Yeah,
starting off like headshots without even having the intention to.
It's a wild ride for sure. Yeah,
It's a weird domino effect, butterfly effect, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange. I remember my first job was I filmed a apprentice canopy cup, which is a cooking competition
Okay.
between. I was like an assistant, so I was helping someone. It was basically all the Hilton hotels get together, and they bring all their apprentice chefs
Right.
into one hotel, and they just have like a competition. They do like a 3-course meal, and it was great. It was like because they had to make 2 of each course. So like one for the judges and one for presentation. And when everyone left, all the presentation food was left, and we ate
Yeah.
so much food because there was like 9 teams, so
Yeah.
there was 9 3-meal courses just left. So between me and one other guy, and we just
Yeah.
absolutely went nuts. But yeah, that was my introduction, kind of the introduction to the video world.
Yeah.
I had a couple of other bits here and there, but that was my first proper video job.
And now we're here.
And now we're here.
Imagine if that first job we did together hadn't worked out.
Oh mate, that was so funny. I'll just say it for the record because it's actually well funny. The first time me and Alex worked, he asked me to help him film this like weird presentation corporate thing.
Yeah.
And we'd like organized it, date sorted, let's say Friday, I think it was. Friday sorted. I'd like hired out all the kit, whatever. And then he calls me on Wednesday, or like texts me on Wednesday at like 9 p.m. He's like, oh, like, yo, bro, like, you're good for tomorrow. And I was like, tomorrow? I was like, in my head thinking like, what? I swear it's Friday. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I texted him. I was like, yeah, man, yeah, I'm all good. In my head, I'm thinking, shit. I don't have any of the stuff. I don't have, like, all the stuff is booked, like rented for the Friday. It's like 9 p.m. Like, I'm staying at my friend's house in London. Like, it didn't even have, I was just like sleeping on someone's couch. Luckily, I had my car, and I went ham. I called every person I knew in London to be like, yo, bro, do you have this camera? Bro, do you have this? Literally calling people like at 3 a.m. like that I've met once in my life, being like, yo, bro, can I hire your camera? Blah, blah, blah. Like, so at 3, 4 a.m. the night before, I'm like going around London collecting like camera, tripod from here, blah, blah, blah. And then in the morning, I like waited outside like a camera shop because I had to buy 2 tripods and then like a bunch of cables. Anyway, somehow I managed to just get all this stuff, and I turned up to the shoot like looking good, smelling good. Managed to like absolutely smash it. We got there, filmed it. Alex had no idea that anything had even gone wrong yet, and I'd literally slept for about 30 minutes, but I was caffeinated, feeling good. When the job finished, I told him. He was like, "What the fuck?"
And it's funny because that was the only time I think we've ever actually had like a serious road bump in a job we've done since then.
Yeah.
It's the first one, and if that had gone poorly, that might have just completely changed everything.
Yeah, it would have.
The butterfly domino.
Because you would have been like, "Who the fuck is this guy? Like, why is this guy like completely like not serious?" That was so funny, but it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, come on, I've got to give props to myself to like actually making it happen.
Yeah. No,
that's
then not like showing it as well. That I couldn't even tell.
Yeah. That was good. And it, like, I had to tell you in the end. I think it was a good progression of events to where I was honest with you, and also you were like appreciative of like.
Yeah, I mean, at that point the job was done, so it's fine.
Yeah. So I think
if you had told me that evening, then I would have been in such.
You'd have been stressed in the evening because I was like, there's no point of telling you because like there's nothing you can do. Yeah. So I was like, okay, and it's all my fault anyway. So I was like, let me just sort this out. Yeah. But anyway, whatever that was, like fucking 5 years ago or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Probably crazy.
Much time.
5 years ago. Crazy. It's not, actually 5 years is not even that long of a time, to be honest.
No, yeah. I mean, it isn't.
In the grand
scheme. Like a lot so much has happened, but
so much has happened, but
it isn't a lot if you really put into perspective of a life. But yes.
Yeah.
What a ride.
What a ride. Cool, man. Short one. We can wrap it up.
Cool.
Is there anything you want to add to the creative industry? Or me or you?
Not really. I mean, I think we touched upon a lot of really important things.
Yeah.
I think, like you can kind of see the results of when you actually just consistently do things, and what we've talked about there. It's like you have to see it as just a step-by-step process to chipping away at the old old wood knife, you know, like this could be the final end goal. Right? It doesn't look like much, but you got to get your hand sliced in the ER.
Yeah, you do. You need to get your hand sliced a couple of times to see the results.
But I think that pretty much sums up on my end. I got no much.
Yeah. That's
good.
Good chats, everybody. Nice. If I don't normally do this here, but if you're watching, can you just leave a nice little rating on Spotify, trying to get the podcast off its feet.
Do it.
Do you know what I mean, mate?
Do it.
Rate the thing, like it on YouTube, comment, feedback.
Let's go.
Love you. Safe.
Nice.